Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hot Mess Podcast, the show where we talk about real issues in a casual setting because we don't have it all figured out. We're a hot mess. So I'm Devin. This is Stephanie. And today we're going to talk about something that my wife is not even prepared for. Actually, she's always prepared. She's definitely prepared, but nothing that I had previously told her about. So let's get into it. The question for today is, why does God hate sin, or why is sin even wrong?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought I'd get into that because you're on the internet. You deal with people who don't necessarily believe in God, which the Bible is pretty clear about that. About all of us actually do believe in God. We just deny Him with our wickedness. It's in Romans. But why is sin wrong? Why does God hate sin?
Well, I think you have to define sin before you can say whether it's right or wrong.
See, this is why my wife
And
is
how
here.
can you define it unless you have God or an absolute authority, which we as Christians say is the God of the universe, right? So you're having to define it according to His terms.
You are. And
So go ahead and define it.
yeah, I can. But the first thing too is I think anyone, whether you believe in God or not, you have to believe in the existence of sin, because if you don't, it's a little rough.
You might not call it sin.
You may not call it sin.
You might not call it
you
sin.
Definitely believe
in right and wrong.
An elderly woman
exactly.
in the face.
You believe in right and wrong. Yeah.
Yes.
Even if you don't say that you believe in right and wrong.
That you
do, in fact.
You're a liar.
You do have some type of standard of right and wrong.
Actually, if you say that you don't believe in right and wrong, go ahead and put your address in the comments below, and we'll just tell people where to go, rob.
Yeah, go steal your stuff, because
you don't believe that it's
totally
wrong.
Fine.
So you'll become a believer real quick.
Totally fine.
But that's the thing, is there's a lot of people who are just dishonest when it comes to this stuff. And not believing in right and wrong. They do believe in moral absolutes. They just don't like you to define them.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, we have to deal with the reality of the fact that there is a creator. Just go outside, look up at the stars, look at our cellular structure, and pretty quickly you start putting two together and saying, hey, you know what? There's no way this thing is an accident. There is just no way that we're just here by happenstance. There's too much evidence of our Creator marking us, and so, and that's what's awesome. Romans says creation itself testifies to the existence of God, and it really does. Like, you go outside on a starry night, and you just look up, you're like, wow, like, man, it's incredible. And even when you're looking at like the stars, the sky, looking at way far out stars and how big they are in comparison to the sun here, and then when you look at like just the smallest particle that we can observe, it's clear, the evidence for our Creator. And so, because we're coming from the premise that it definitely is a Creator, that He's the one that sets the standards.
Yeah, he gets to make the rules.
He gets to make the rules, and we get to deal with them.
It's understandable that you don't like them, right? Because none of us, from birth to current state, ever want someone to tell us what to do, right? We're like, no, I want to be my own boss, right? And I want to be able to decide.
I feel like that's another video.
And that's fine. It's fine that you want that.
Yeah.
However, it does not dictate reality, right? Like, you can't just be like, because I want it to be this way, therefore it is. Like, no, reality is reality, and you can deny it all you want, but that catches up to you eventually. So from the premise that there is a creator, he is the God of the universe, Jesus Christ, right? So he gets to make the rules. He gets to decide what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong.
Tell us how it is.
Right? And so anything that he says is bad or wrong is sin, right? Basically.
Yeah, basically anything that goes against
just the word
what God's
sin.
standard is is sin. And so that's a very simple way to define it. I mean, we have, the 10 Commandments, but I mean, we know that it actually extends beyond that just by looking at what God says about us. And so, getting into it, but why does God hate what He says is wrong?
Right. Like, why does He say it's wrong? Why is He upset about it?
Well, why is it
bad? Because
bad?
He says, right, that sin leads to death, right? That the consequences of sin are death. And that we, in our very finite understanding, don't always recognize that, right? Like, much like our children, right? As they're growing up, we're just having to tell them, yes, do this, don't do that, because that'll kill you. That'll cause these, all these things to happen. And it's the same for us, that we still have very finite, very limited understanding of the consequences of our choices and our actions, right? We are very primal, I guess, in the fact that we want to do what feels good.
Yeah, we're selfish.
And if it feels good, I mean, it's literally, we hear this in a commercial, right? If it feels good, do it. Right? And that is our mentality, but it doesn't mean it's a good mentality, because just because it feels good doesn't mean it is good. Right? And so we need someone with greater understanding to tell us, hey, I know you don't understand this yet, but that is sin. It's bad for you because it's leading to death. It's bringing destruction into your life.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing to hit on.
That's why God cares so much.
Yes, God doesn't want to see you destroyed.
Right.
Obviously, John 3:16 shows God's immense love for us. But when we talk about sin, I think sometimes, and we talk about, the wages of sin are death, but it's not just death. Like, sin has earthly consequences. And so when we look at just picking out, one sin or one category of sin that God continually mentions that He hates, talks about sexual immorality.
I'm glad you brought that up,
Okay,
because
so
we just talked about relationships. I was like, this is such an easy one to talk about it.
Exactly. So why is sexual immorality why does God hate it with such disdain? Why does He talk about it and have such talks about harsh consequences from it? And even why do we see such harsh consequences in the world with all sorts of disease being linked to sexual immorality? Well, the reason for it is, and this is Devin taking from Scripture, is because God created us, right? He created man, He created woman, and He created sex. And He created it to be a certain way, a special thing. And the interesting thing enough is not only does sexual immorality, kind of the world's view of sex, you should have tons of partners, you should go all out, you should do all sorts of different things. Not only does that cheapen it, it makes it cheaper, right? Because it's just spread out all over the place. So it cheapens something that God says is, hey, this is really special. But it also brings about a destructive nature through disease, through consequences, because that's not, He didn't make us to mesh and then be ripped apart, because the sex and the component of marriage is this biological component that now scientifically we understand. Science shows it, guys. It's not the Bible. This science shows that when you come together with someone and you bond in that way, your biological connection, your connection in your mind grows stronger to that person. Why? Because you've had that experience and that release of what is it? Dopamine. Right?
I forget which hormone it is.
Yes, the release of hormones in your brain, the release of that euphoria causes you to connect and think, hey, this is a good thing.
It's a bonding hormone.
It's a bonding thing, and so it creates this experience that God has made for you to enjoy in the context
within
of marriage.
the parameters, right, that he set.
To where
for your
and
good.
It's great. and in that context, like, you don't need all sorts of funky stuff. You know, the sensitivity is more heightened. It's just it's a fact. It's a fact, guys. You're not as desensitized, so naturally your sensitivity level is up. It is actually more enjoyable. It is more pleasurable than if you've gone and you've just been all willy-nilly all over the place. Everything your connection is not the same, and so this is something, and I think God hates that. He doesn't want. He created you to give you a certain experience. He created that for your blessing and for your benefit, and all the enemy wants to do is take it and cheapen it and rob you of it, and then use it as something against you, like he does with men in pornography, and connecting that release to something that isn't for your marriage or anybody in pornography, really. But and then it cheapens and takes away from the relationship and causes all sorts of other issues in our life. But this is the reason. I mean, God hates it because he wants the best for you.
Right.
It's not just it's not just he doesn't want to see you die and go to hell. He doesn't want that, but he wants the best. He actually wants the best. It's like your parents not wanting you to be on crack because they know that it's bad. I mean, I know it sounds stupid. We laugh about it, but it's the truth. And I think this is something that people get wrong. They're like, oh, well, I have a freedom to do these things. I have a freedom, and they'll put in insert whatever vice you want right there. I can do this if I want to. Well, yeah, you can. You know what? You can make your own decisions. You can do all sorts of stupid and foolish things if you want to. But the problem is that with every decision comes a consequence. It comes a price.
Well, it's like I tell our kids, like, you can choose what you want to do, but you can't choose the consequences of those choices.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the same with God, because like we said, he makes the rules. Right. He makes them because he created things to be a certain way. Like we were saying with marriage, and to have sexual relationship within marriage. Right. Because what's the purpose of it? Like you said initially, is that the two shall become one flesh and they cleave to one another. And so it's meant to be a bonding of the two so that they are physically bonded, right? And like you said, science is showing that is in fact what is happening. And then when you have to rip that bond because you're having multiple partners, not only is it emotionally traumatic, but then it lessens the bonding capabilities, right? Yeah. So later, when you finally find that one person, right, that I want to be with you forever and I want to commit myself to you and be bonded. Now it's so much harder to find and maintain that bonding, right? Because you've kind of messed it up, right? Not that God can't restore, but then also, right, sex is also to have kids, right? To procreate, and is meant to be within a committed relationship. And statistics literally say the best parenting is married parenting. Even often when the married state isn't the most best relationship, it's still like better. So much better for the kids, right? Because of that stability, because of what both parents are able to offer, and they have this full family unit that God intended, right? But when you see people just out all over the place, what's happening? These kids are being born outside of the stable environment, the loving environment that God intended, right? And so we're seeing the consequences of that, right? Where these kids lack self-confidence. They're getting in a ton of trouble because there's no one there to like strengthen them and teach them, right? You have tons of kids that are now going to jail, right? All of this is happening. And they tell you, again, statistically, it's single mother homes, right, that are seeing this all happening. Anyway, so that's a kind of a different conversation. But it's still at the basis of God's best is that a man and a woman marry. they are bound together in such a deep, meaningful way, right? And it's a beautiful relationship and it is pleasant, right? There is desire, there is pleasure, right? And then you also have a family unit now when you're bringing kids into that beautiful, stable, loving, committed relationship. And then that family is now able to show people like, this is the good thing that God wanted, right? This is the best, because Jesus said, I came to give you life and life abundant. I don't want you to just survive. I don't want you to just make it. I don't want you to just be like, I guess that's as good as it gets. No, God is like, no, this is amazing. This is wonderful. Not that there's not difficulty, but it's so fulfilling. Like we say all the time, like our kids, oh my goodness, they drive me crazy so often. But I also am like, but they bring me so much joy and fulfillment. And there's so much I want to experience with them. And that's God's desire. But when we forget about all that and we're like, no, but I want to just go and sleep around because it feels good in the moment. And I'm not even denying that, right? But you lose out on all the blessings God has for you. Lose out on the life.
On the better. Because
you're choosing momentary satisfaction that inevitably leads to destructive forces and death in your life. And it's sad. And that's not what God wants.
And then, it's, there's people that like, they're like, no, I'm going to choose this. And they, try to flaunt like, oh yeah, I can do whatever I want. I can be with whoever I want to be. And I don't have a family or kids or a husband. I can just do this. And, and it's like, yeah, but at the end of your life, what do you have? I remember there's I'm trying to remember there's one YouTuber out there who's talking about being around his grandmother when she died. She was like in her 90s, and they had all the family around there, and he's like, that's a legacy, got like 50 people around her, but that's part of the benefit of having children is you get to, and we even see it now with my grandmother who's 97, Meemaw, and she, she's around. We celebrated her 97th birthday not too long ago. Tons of friends and family. I mean, she had, just in family alone there had like 30 people. And so, but it's just, that's the blessing that comes with that. And I think it gets sweeter as you get older too. That you just are like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And so, and it's cool for us too, just to be able to see that example. So I think we tackled that one pretty well. So yeah, Sin.
Even though you sprung it on me.
No bueno. Sprung it. But hey, if you guys have enjoyed this video, if you like what we're doing here, go ahead and share this. Also, follow us on all the social media platforms. I don't do it, but our producer in chief, Carlos, does, and so he will.
Thank God for Carlos.
Sure
we're too old.
He'll make sure that you get taken care of. But thanks, guys. Like and share this video, and we'll catch you next time. If there's something that you want us to talk about, feel free to put it down in the comments below or comment it on one of our social channels, and we will make a video about it, because that's what we are here for, is to also help answer your questions, talk about your difficult topics. And I know that there's a lot of people that have them out there. So we will talk about that. Until next time, we'll catch you later. Peace.